Hey, listen, I hope you enjoy this episode of the Antisocial Podcast. I understand you're probably wondering whose voice this is, so hello, my name's JB, and I love to write big, heavy riffs with big power metal choruses, and I call it Fierce Deity, which, after you're done here, I invite you to check out, which you can do by finding me all over social media at Fierce Deity Band, or simply head to fiercedeityband.com. Anyway, enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Antisocial Podcast. Before we kick into this week's episode, come over and join me on Patreon. Patreon.com/Andy Dowling is the place to go to support this little old podcast of mine. Support starts from only $1 a month. Dirt cheap. And there are additional tiers there to get access to exclusive content. So go over to patreon.com/Andy Dowling. It's a massive support for the podcast. Keeps this whole thing fueled and trucking along. Thank you very much. Hello. Welcome to the Antisocial Podcast, episode 234. And this week's guest is with Lindsay Schoolcraft. You may recall Lindsay from her time in Cradle of Filth. She was with the band for quite a few years, but these days she is now solo. She's released her debut album called Martyr. She's involved in the band or / project called Antiqva with Zen from Neobliviscaris. And just a very busy person, amazing person to chat to. I really had a top time talking to Lindsay. We're connected on Twitter. I've gone back and forth a little bit and took a while to get this podcast happening, but just well and truly worth the wait. So just super stoked to have Lindsay on the podcast. I think you guys will really enjoy it. And there you go. So go over to lindsayschoolcraft.com. She's on the socials. I'll have everything in the show notes over at andydowling.net or andysocial.net. Check out the latest album, Martyr. And recently nominated for a Juno Award, which is, I think, the Canadian equivalent of the Grammys, which is massive, especially for a debut album as well. So congratulations, Lindsay, for that. Amazing feat. So there you go. Enough of me. Please enjoy this great chat with Lindsay Schoolcraft. I saw a tweet that you put up the other day, and I thought, this has to kick it off because I'm...
Oh God, I hope so. I hope it wasn't me being a big mouth or anything.
No, but I can't remember exactly word for word what you said, but the gist of it was that there are a number of people that secretly think that you're a vampire and your inbox is basically next level. Can you please extend on this?
Okay, so it all started when I joined Cradle of Filth. And funny thing is listen, I was never a fan of them in high school. I appreciate the band for what it is now, but I really like traditional black metal. And when I joined the band, I looked at the Wikipedia article and they were listed as vampire metal. And I'm like, what the hecking heck? So then as time goes on, I realize that a small handful of fans and people, I don't know if they're fans or not, seem to think Danny Filth is a vampire. And then they were asking me if he turned me. So I jokingly said, no, it was actually Zen from Neobliviscaris, and that caused more problems because I was just like, I'm just going to be a cheeky person here and cause more problems because I'm really good at that. And yeah, and then from there, there's just been I know there's a vampire community in New Orleans in the United States, and they all keep an eye on me to this day. They still think I'm a vampire or a very strong priestess witch of sorts. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's what you want to believe without confirmation, I have proof of me aging and having no mortality. So I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I've got some weird requests over the years, and I'm just like, I cannot provide the services for you.
Wow.
Sorry.
I mean, when you said next level, that's definitely next level. I mean, without even going into the detail. I mean, I know nothing about this world and these different communities out there, and so I'm always fascinated to even just have it's sort of like people that watch, I mean, this is probably the silliest comparison it's just coming to front of mind now, but it's sort of like watching crime shows where you really sort of have no sort of urge to be sort of in the story, but you love to spectate and just understand what's going on and go, what are they up to? Like, what's going on? Why did they do this? And of course, these vampire communities, you know, are not, well, I don't know, are probably not committing crimes, but it's so out there. I sort of look at it and go, well, yeah, what is this all about? Like, what is going on here? Like, what do they actually believe? Are they real vampires?
Oh, they're harmless, and some of them claim to be, and I'm not going to take that away from them. But I know what you mean about, like, you know, watching serial killers. It's like, I'm glad I'm not involved in this train wreck, but I'm going to watch the train wreck, you know? And I understand. This whole lockdown has been true crimes for me, so I get it.
I've said this on the podcast a few times, but my wife she just loves it. So growing up, she would watch, I don't know if it's in North America, but they would have serial killer Sundays. And so on cable TV. And so we have Super Soul Sundays from Oprah. Oh, right. That's all we get. A slight contrast.
Oh, yes.
Well, Jess would grow up with her dad watching this like on Sunday nights, and they would just sit on the couch and watch and it was just like the craziest. I just laugh every time she says it. But she got Netflix, and so she watches Netflix on her phone, and so get up early in the morning. She usually gets up before me, and she's in the bathroom putting her makeup on, and I'm sort of coming out of sleep, and all I can hear is, and then he put her body in a bag, and then they cut him up or whatever it is, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, this is the way we're starting our day, really? And she's like, I love it, I can't get enough. I'm like, oh, maybe like later in the day or in the evening if you want to watch it, but first thing in the morning, like it's really setting the tone.
Makes you appreciate waking up and being alive at all. Yeah. You know, great motivation to start the day.
well, that's a good perspective. I never thought about it like that, but there you go. Just
oh, hey, you're friendly neighborhood goth. Always here for you. I get it.
Do you think was that a shock, sort of jumping into that world? As you said before, like you weren't much of a sort of a Cradle of Filth fan growing up and getting into metal, and I think more the sort of traditional black metal was more your cup of tea, so to speak. But you know, jumping into that world, and I mean, I don't know much of the backstory really, so you know, forgive me if I ask any questions that are sort of you've been repeating constantly over the years. But
no worries.
I hear the word recruited or discovered. When it came to you joining the band, and I'm just thinking, well, what happened there, and what sort of culture shocks did you experience sort of going into this space with a band that's already got such a legacy and stigma and fan base, and just what you touched on before, it's just like, okay, yeah, next level people following the band.
Yeah, it was a shock in a way, and to be honest, I got really lucky. I feel like the stars aligned, and there was this small little opening, tiny doorway that only my little self could fit into. And I got so lucky, you know, getting the job and getting on board. And it was a big shock. I learned immediately, like, there was a lot of traction. There was a lot of work to do to bring Cradle back to where Danny wanted it. Live shows and how that went. I learned so much immediately about the industry and how things work. A lot of things I kind of wish I didn't know how they worked, because that's what made me do my own record label at the end of the day. But it was big, and it was intense, and you know, I feel like I just got really lucky because I see the slow climb of so many artists and bands, you know, and then the next level, and then the next step, and then the next achievement unlocked, you know what I mean? And I went from touring in a van in Eastern Canada with my old band to all of a sudden flying around the world and being put up in nice hotels and beautiful tour buses. And I feel like I didn't really go through the process of what so many of the people I respect have gone through, and I appreciated it and I respected it, and I was grateful. I was like, thank you, this is a huge opportunity. And of course, in the beginning, it was really fast because I was told I was only going to be there for 6 months, and then the band was going to take a hiatus. And then a year later, I was like writing A Hammer of the Witches with them. But yeah, it was a big shock, especially because Danny, and it's no offense to him, but he's not really online. He's very to himself, off of social media, cares about his privacy, and I can respect that. But because of that, so many people who wanted to access him were coming to me, and I'm just like, whoa, like that. I think that was the part that was most overstimulating, but also in a way almost like made me the band's secretary. So I kind of enjoyed that part, working with sponsorships and stuff. It was very interesting, and it was a big learning curve too, but I'm just grateful it even happened, to be honest.
It's amazing. I mean, just touching on what you said about Danny sort of, being quite private and offline, I think that's what makes him being on Instagram now so wild, because I follow him.
He loves Instagram. He loves it.
It's incredible, because I grew up with, Cradle of Filth is one of those bands that I knew a few songs here and there, some of the earlier albums when I was sort of getting into metal. And but one of the things that was such a dramatic thing for that band was just these next level T-shirts and merchandise that they put out that was just, it was shock value. And so they were the things that you would buy to shock your parents or the teachers at school or whatever it is. And so I think it created, I mean, at least from my point of view, it created this mystique around the band and around him, and just like, who are these people? Are they even people? What do they get up to? That it must be the most satanic and dark thing, and just the most blasphemous stuff. And then now...
Oh, I got that a lot too.
Yeah.
Asked if I was a Satanist or oh God, all of that. Yeah, absolutely.
But now watching him on Instagram, and he's putting up photos going to the football, and he's hanging out with his family, and he's like out in the sun having some cocktails or whatever. And it's just like, wow, like it's super cool. Like, I love it, and it's just so fascinating to watch somebody that's that larger than life character for so many years in the metal world, just showing this different side to him. So, just on a side note, it's just it's cool to see that different side.
Mm-hmm, absolutely, it gives him. It really shows people who he really is, and at the end of the day, he's just a super nerdy guy who likes to crack jokes, and that's cool,
I guess it would
mostly dad jokes, really bad dad jokes.
Well, I guess it wouldn't have hurt. It wouldn't have helped his branding to begin with when he first started out. So I think the timing now with him showing a little bit of the extra sides of his life now, probably a good timing as far as where his legacy is in his band and what he's created over the years. But I'm sure if he went down that path to begin with right at the start, it may have not.
Oh,
helped.
Understandably, yeah, absolutely. I think it's good he did what he did in the '90s. I can respect that from a business perspective and as an artist. So yeah, absolutely.
How did you get the opportunity? Was it? I mean, surely it wasn't a call, like a random call from Danny Filth, just going, "Hey."
Oh no. Oh God, I joined the band and he didn't even email me till like months later, and I was like, am I even in this band? This person's not talking to me. Shows what his communication level's like. But anyways, it was through a friend, and she was asked, and she politely turned it down, but she recommended me. And then I went ahead and, did the proper, audition tape, and wrote up a letter and just said, please consider me. It'd be a really cool opportunity and I'd love to do it. And they chose me. I was like, what the heck? And I still, to this day, I'm just like, how that happened is beyond me, because I just know so many musicians who are just far beyond my skill as a keyboardist and pianist, and it just happened, and I'm like, okay, well, just accept this and move forward. And it was just really interesting, to say the least. Like I I was very grateful. I think I was like one of a few people going for it, and they just chose me for some reason. And I'm like, okay, let's do this.
Obviously, these days with the internet and the way that we all collaborate and work on different things together, it's so easy. And especially now, like with like COVID-19 and everything, you know, we've been forced to have to really sort of lean heavy into a lot of this. But you know, I mean, it wasn't that long ago when, you know, you joined. I mean, being in, you know, Canada and the band for the most part, correct me if I'm wrong, based in the UK, what was it like sort of from a distance point of view and sort of working together and just trying to keep everything moving? Was it disjointed in any way, or did you already have that connectivity that just made it nice and easy just to make it all happen?
It was difficult, and you know, I was the farthest away from everyone. Like I was like, you know, everyone's centric to the UK and the Czech Republic and Europe, so I'm all the way in Canada. And it was just it was like, again, like grateful for the experience, so happy I got to do what I did. But it was just such a nightmare writing the albums with all the emails. And of course, I was the last person to wake up. So by the time I'd wake up and be ready to write, they'd be finishing their day. And I really wouldn't, like, everything was written and I really wouldn't get my say. And it's like, I also just like, I don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. Like, you know, so to, you know, it's just like, I'm on a different schedule over here, and that, you know, it was hectic, but made it work. And if anything, like, it was an interesting experience, and it taught me a lot, like, you know, and because of that, now with my black metal band Antiqva that I have with Zen, we know how to better communicate and do a project remotely, like write an entire symphonic black metal album from 5 different countries across the globe. And I mean, again, it's work. It's a lot of work. And it when our guitarist Fabian from Germany, he flies to Montreal where the drummer is, and I drive out 5 hours, and we're the 3 main composers. When we do that about twice a year, that already got kiboshed once this year for reasons. That really speeds up the process, but that time in between is so important. And working with that setup with Cradle of Filth really taught me how to do that for myself with another project. And I see where, because it was new, and I think it was new for a few people in that lineup too. And I saw where there could be issues, and I try to nip those in the butt with this band. And I mean, you've just got to really get in and get your hands dirty and try your best and respect one another. And that's all you can really do at the end of the day. But yeah, it was, I still don't understand why they kept me in the band for so long, because I was so far away and I cost the most to like bring out there. And I'm like, why are you doing, like, as someone who does their own budgets and financing, I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, am I that good? Like, I don't know how that worked out, and bless them, again, very grateful. But it was just interesting. You know, it was it wasn't like being in the same town as everyone and meeting up in person every week to jam out songs and plan business. It was nothing like that. It was so all over the place all the time.
It must be like, I mean, I hear this a lot in sort of the business world, where you're trying to get a team together, and the skill set aspect is obviously, you know, something that needs to be considered, but I think the culture fit is like the most important thing. Like, you want to work with people that just have the right personality, the right mindset, and will just get the job done, rather than somebody who's just like an absolute whiz on whatever skill they're contributing to that group or to that business. And I mean, just from the outside, I'm just assuming that would have been probably one of the reasons why, you know, I guess they could have found somebody locally that probably could get the job done from a technical point of view, maybe, but maybe there was other things that you brought to the table from just your individual mindset and your personality that probably made things a little bit easier for the crew to sort of continue on.
I guess so. I mean, I guess I did help out with a lot of things that weren't really my job at the end of the day, and I enjoyed them. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed them, but maybe that's why Sir Danny just like kept me around, because he's like, well, Lindsay will help me with that, and I didn't really question it. Near the end, I was kind of like the last 2 years is like, oh, you want me to do that again, really? But in the beginning, I was totally like, oh yeah, let's do this and this and this and this, and I'll do. Don't worry, I'll take project management. I'll do all of it for you. And then I'm like, why am I not sleeping? So maybe that had something to do to it. To do with it. You never know.
Did you have a light bulb moment where learning the industry from that perspective, which not a lot of people get to do, especially independent musicians? Like, you don't really get to see it from the inside of a machine like that. Did you have a moment where you sort of went, like, I'm starting to understand how this works and how I can apply it to my own stuff, and starting to think about, what I can do with my own music and my own sort of creative output?
I went, for the time I was in Cradle of Filth, when I went into it, again, I didn't know that it was going to go on as long as it did. But I had my own dreams and ambitions before Cradle of Filth came about. And I knew what I wanted for that. And I kept that within me, even though there were people who tried to knock that out of me. You know what I mean? And you really need to live your life for yourself and have your own dreams and aspirations, because that's what feeds your soul. And I knew what I wanted to do. And in regards to like recording during that time, it was very difficult because Cradle of Filth was very demanding, right? So when I got into it, and especially when we signed, Cradle signed to Nuclear Blast in 2015, and that's not secret, that's public knowledge. The people who worked at Nuclear Blast at the time were the most helpful, considerate, communicative, wonderful people who loved their jobs and wanted to help artists. Unfortunately, a lot of them aren't there anymore, which is pretty heartbreaking. But I still keep in touch with them, and they've moved on to other jobs, either other labels or independently. And they taught me so much, like any questions I had. Like tonight, I've been working on my own independent publishing, and my brain is a pile of mush. It's so much work, and it's so much jargon I'm still not fully in the know with. But I have good people around me helping me figure it out. So, they just opened my eyes to what the industry really, really looks like. And it was, I really appreciate them during that time period, because they showed me what was possible and what the industry really does look like. It's very actually simple, but we beautiful artist types make it so complicated. It's just like, this is how it goes. But of course, things are changing. And I mean, I've been in this industry almost 2 decades now, and I've seen it change so many times. And if you told me at 15 years old, when I started my first band and started playing locally and recording music, if you told me like in 20 years you're going to own your own record label, I'd be like, what? Like, no, that's awful. But here we are. Because I believe that you can't do everything yourself. You need to have a good team around you who wants to work with you, that you have each other's backs, and they're just genuinely good people who love their jobs. I always look for people who love their jobs. They're the best ones to work with. And it did open my eyes to what record labels do, to the touring world, to even just like the best part of that was realizing what it really like, and this doesn't go against anyone who was around before that, but what it really meant to have fans. Like and the fans were just like, and still are, because a lot of them have stayed with me, are just everything. They inspire me. They can lean on me. I can lean on them. They're just that soul connection that you have with some fans is just unbelievable. And there's days I'm like, I wonder how this person's doing. I wonder if this person's okay. And it opened my eyes to, sorry to tangent, but it opened my eyes to how even before this pandemic, how lonely and isolated some people can be, and they don't feel like anyone cares about them and is listening to them. And it just blew my mind. I'm like, I thought everybody had like awesome people around them, you know, because I built that life for myself. But it makes you really realize like why you do music, because when you can't have that conversation, someone can just listen to your song and it can change their life or save their life. And that was like the ultimate thing that really kept me going. Especially like I mentioned before, during those times where people tried to knock my own ambitions and dreams out of me, you know, probably because I was so good at my job, they just, you know, wanted me to stay around and then have me there doing that job all the time. And I'm like, no, I have my own dreams, you know? So absolutely. I learned a lot. I really learned a lot.
I mean, with the whole fan thing, that's one, I mean, I wrote it down. I've got this list of like different things to trigger an idea or thought to talk to you about. But I mean, community building is just like this big thing that I notice from your end, just watching the way that you interact online with people, especially on Twitter. I think Twitter's such an amazing platform, and I've never used it properly until more recently. And
right,
it's really interactive, and I think the way that you communicate with your audience is like, it's so cool because it's so transparent, it's honest. It's you know, if you're having a rough day or you're having a great day, it doesn't matter. Like, you're going to talk about it and people know, and it's sort of opening up. It's almost giving permission on both sides to say, hey, like, you know, we can communicate back and forth. It's not just me being an artist and having to do the hard sell all the time and keep promoting everything I do and just hope and cross your fingers that people are going to, you know, follow the call to action. It's about really nurturing people that believe in what you do and creating friendships as well. I mean, you know, it's amazing how people I've connected with over the years just from music.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I know exactly what you're saying. And Twitter's fun like that. I really enjoy it.
It's really good. And I think if anybody listening wants to get schooled on how to use Twitter correctly, I think you're one of the people out there, because it's great. It's good to watch the comments and people interacting with you. And I think just what you put out there into the Twitter world is it's really beneficial. I think it's great to even from a musician point of view, just to go, okay, I need, like, you can't just be one dimensional. You have to just be yourself and put it out there.
And that's the thing, like, a few things to comment on, like, as a musician, I surround myself with a lot of musicians or creative types, and you kind of forget how special that thing is that you do. And then when you go and you talk about it on Twitter, people are like, oh, you're amazing. And I'm like, what? You know, and it's like, I forget that not a lot of people do what I do and they want to hear about it. And also, Twitter's just been a platform where I think sometimes if I'm having a bad day, which they come and go, I can be very vulnerable on there. I'm not someone who's afraid to talk about mental health or, you know, it's situations where I've been bullied or manipulated. I'm not afraid to, you know, without naming names, of course, because I want to handle it gracefully. I don't want to destroy someone's career over like one stupid little thing that they said and never apologized for. But in such a way that, like, I hope that someone else out there will see what I'm talking about and won't allow, you know, narcissists to hurt them anymore, or will leave their shitty ex, or, you know, will consider getting therapy. That's what I do. Like, I always try to turn things, and even if they are negative, I really try to turn them into a positive. But having Twitter is definitely something, like, it's a platform where that's discussed, but something that my friend Leah at Savvy Musician Academy, she's taught me is, she's like, you know, your fans are a lot like you. And it's true. And I think recently, oh, don't mind, my cats are howling in the background here.
That's okay.
It's that time of day over here. Well, night, I should say. I'm going to chase them out while we talk about this. But as come on, guys, get out of here. As she's saying, she's like, you know, your fans are actually a lot like you. And I tweeted out recently, like, hey, what was like the symphonic metal album that changed your life? And it just got so many like responses and retweets, and I genuinely loved the conversation, because a lot of the albums people were bringing up were same albums that really inspired me. So it was cool. Like, it was just so much fun to have a conversation with a 8,000 people who are quite a bit like you. Is really fun.
What was that lady's name? Was it Leah McHenry?
Yes, Leah, the queen of the internet.
I mean, I think I've seen the name around. Have you got, what's the background with her?
So she owns the Savvy Musician Academy, which is a digital marketing school for musicians. And I have been through it, and I have to do like one last class. I almost graduated, and I used her techniques to do my album launch and essentially start my own record label. And she's been, she's made her career online without touring. She's a homeschooling mom. And we've known each other a long time. We go back almost 10 years. She's wonderful, and I consider her like a mentor. Like, I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for her. I'd probably still be on tour thinking I can't make my other bands happen, and super sick because I was having health issues last year. She really helped me get on my feet, and I'm forever grateful for that. Absolutely. Was her, what she does as far as providing sort of, I guess, online courses and help for musicians, was this something that was instrumental and something that you were digesting as you were still sort of going through sort of Cradle of Filth last year, sort of, basically setting yourself up to make that decision to move on? Yeah, it was part of it. I feel bad because I was a bit sneaky about it with the guys. I mean, they probably saw it from the outside looking in, like, oh, she's so cute. Look at her releasing her album. Oh, our little sister's finally releasing her solo album. So proud. And I was just like, I can't go on traveling like this. It's absolutely destroying my health physically and mentally. The schedule was just so grueling, and if I'm not happy mentally and physically, I'm not going to be good to anyone. Yep. So I enrolled last winter at the beginning of the year, and I pretty much almost had graduated by the time the album came out. But it was huge. It was amazing that I could do it. It's pretty much it's like a solid digital marketing course that teaches you how to do e-commerce, which, being I guess I could say makeup artist, I don't fully do makeup artistry anymore, but as I sadly look at all the makeup in front of me on my desk, I already had an idea of how e-commerce worked, but then applying it to selling your albums and your merch and creating online experiences for your fan base, that was like next level for me. It was just absolutely incredible. And then, of course, moving on to this year, which has just been like crazy. Like, I'm so glad I'm online, because if I wasn't, oh my gosh, I don't even want to think about where I'd be right now. It'd be very difficult. I'd probably just be asking my boyfriend to be my sugar daddy, because I wouldn't know, I wouldn't know what else to do at this point. But instead, I can stand on my own 2 feet and be like, I'm financially independent. And that's as a musician, that's like, whoa, did I just say that? But it's very liberating. So yeah, I highly recommend this school. It's like a quarter of the cost of what it costs to go to university or college for digital marketing, and it's just geared specifically towards musicians. It was a really great experience. It really was. I loved it. I love learning, and I love being a student under someone who's just so, just sees the bigger picture of things, that's I think why I love Leah so much, is she just sees the full picture. She doesn't just see like the one narrow path. And I have so much respect for that.
I think that's a big thing that many of us sort of, we get stuck in the clouds or in the weeds, depending on which direction you're looking. But, we're so we're so operational. Like we've got a bunch of things that we need to do, and we're constantly trying to juggle everything. And you're so in the thick of it that you can't, like, it's almost impossible to see the bigger picture unless you've got some great meditation practices in place where you can separate yourself and give yourself some clarity of mind. It's difficult, and you can find yourself years later doing the same thing over and over again and stressing yourself out for a reason that you can't even work out yourself, as far as, why am I not progressing? Why am I not doing what I want to do?
Right.
Why am I not satisfied? So I think having anybody, and obviously with a background and some expertise, is a massive help, but anybody who can just look from the outside and go, have you thought about this? Or have you noticed this thing that's staring you in your face? And you go, oh, no, I haven't actually. Thank you so much. So just from how you've described it, I think I lean on so many other people all the time, because it's important to get a fresh set of eyes on just what you're doing and why you're doing it. I think that's just so critical, because I think we're all so proud. We want to be independent. We want to show off what we can do, and I think sometimes we're a little bit of a closed book, and we don't want other people to come in. But it really, we become our own worst enemy.
Oh, totally. Your ego can totally get in the way of you and hold you back from so much. It's crazy. It's interesting that you mentioned that.
It's something that I notice a lot more. I think it's like anything. When you start to open your world up and you start to learn new things and build different skills, you start to notice where all the inefficiencies are, or the bad examples of or bad practices out there. And it's just it's not baffling, because I understand where it comes from, but at the same time there's a level of frustration, because it's almost like, when somebody's converted to whatever it might be, and suddenly they become a little bit preachy, and it's like, you got to come and see the light. Like it's so much better on the other side. You got to come and experience this. And so I've certainly noticed that. Even just like one thing that I notice with musicians that they do a lot more now is, we're not just the performer or the writer or the creator anymore. We've got to be the marketing person, to a degree. We've got to think about PR a little bit. We've got to think about e-commerce and a few sales techniques and some good customer service foundations, things like that. And you don't have to do it all, but you have to at least have a basic understanding of it. And I'm noticing more and more musicians starting to become a little bit of a jack of all trades in the music industry, which is cool. But yeah, it's just watching others sort of beat their head against the wall and not understand why they're not getting any further is it's, you just want to reach out and just pull them out of the weeds.
And that's the thing. And I say this with love. I don't say this to be an asshole, but there's so many artists I know and bands, and they just want to complain. They don't want to do anything about it. And then there's the few who actually want to do something about it and take full control of their careers. And they're the ones with the potential that I reach out to and I guess mentor in a way, because I know that, if I see the thing that they're screwing up, they're going to listen to me if I say, hey, by the way, you're totally messing this up. Like, they're going to be like, okay, no, you know what, you're right. But that's the thing. There's some people I've met and they're just like, they're so stuck in like, it's not going to work out. The industry sucks, blah, 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 And the whole idea of being discovered by someone or a label or an agent or a manager is entirely dead. It's so dead. Like, you have to care about your dream and your band and your music more than anyone else before those important people come along and see you. Like, you can't just be widdly diddly on a guitar and then someone's going to walk up and give you a record deal. That idea, that reality has been dead for over 20 years, in my opinion, from my experience.
Oh,
so
at least. And I mean, it reminds me of when I was a kid and just starting to watch a lot of my friends starting to get jobs, and I was either too scared or too lazy to go and send out my resume to local businesses or get on the phone and call people up and ask if there's any vacancies. And so I'd sit there and I'd complain about it. I remember my mum saying, they're not going to rock up to the front door and say, hey, is there anybody home here that wants to work at my local shop or anything like that? You need to get out and actually do it. And so, of course, when you're you're 14 years old, you're just thinking, oh, shut up, mum. Like, what do you know? But it's that whole, I guess it's that victim mentality and just, hoping that somebody can come in and save you or give you that amazing opportunity that will just change your life forever. And it's so rare that any of those circumstances ever happened in general, but let alone now. And I think you just need to build something that you love and it has its own appeal and it's self-sufficient to a degree. And then if people want to work with you, then you can make a decision as to whether you want to do that or not. But at least you've got the control then as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I totally know what you're saying. And that's the thing. Not many people in all aspects of their lives are like that. And they're just waiting. Like they're just, what did my dad always tell me? He's like, there's people who make things happen, people who watch things happen, and people who just don't know what happened. And, I want to be the person who makes things happen. I don't want to be stuck in those other two categories because they sound awful, in my opinion. So, yeah, definitely. I understand what you're saying there entirely.
It's, I think there's so many common themes that I think it's human behavior, really, a lot of this stuff. I mean, sometimes we think that, there certainly are things in the music industry that are unique to the music industry and being a musician. But I think ultimately the behavior aspects are just so similar. I think just anywhere in general, I think it bleeds into so many different, parts of everyday life where people just want to blame society or blame the government or blame their family members or friends or whatever it might be, and just not take that ownership themselves to see what they can do with what they've got.
So true. Your mindset affects every aspect of your life, and I know that from experience.
Well, I mean, for me, it's going back to what we were joking about before with, my wife starting her days off with serial killer series on Netflix. How you start your day just on a micro level is so huge. It's, do you know what you're going to do, or are you just going to wake up and just sort of wing it and just hope that everything falls into place? Sometimes,
so true.
Having a little list or just even being intentional before you go to bed the night before is such it can be a make or break. And so it's, it can be amazing how simple little shifts of habit or mindset can make the world of difference.
No, I agree. And then that's something that since I left Cradle, I've really had to work on, because I was in such a bad place. And it's hard when your brain's not in a good place and your body's not in a good place. And I just really had to bring, I had to be my own personal cheerleader and bring my mentality back up. And it was a lot. It's work. That's, I think, why so many people don't start, because it's so much work, and facing your demons in the beginning is awful. And I know I have been there, but it's worth doing, because you come out on the other side a whole new person, and you can just live, with a little less suffering and a little more perspective. And that's why I'm always I'm pro therapy, and I'm pro self-talk, and I'm pro what you put in. It's not just what you eat, it's what you see, it's what you hear, what you put into your body it's going to be absorbed. You got to make sure there's good stuff around you all the time, or as much as possible.
Well, yeah. Look, you can't always be perfect. And you got to forgive yourself as well when you fall off the rails. Yeah. And that's self-care in itself. You said before about facing your demons. Have you got an example? I mean, especially sort of coming into this year and sort of making the changes that you've made and I mean, just really hitting the ground running and doing a lot of work, whether it be inner work or physical work with music. What were some of the examples of you having to sort of face some of these challenges head on?
Well, everyone has a childhood. Some are not so great, some are not perfect, and some I get so mad when I find it. My boyfriend, his family is wonderful, and he's like, I had the best childhood ever, and I'm like, I hate you. But you learn so much of who you become from your parents, and identifying what I didn't want to bring into my adult life. Seeing how bullying had affected me, turned me into the pleaser, always pleasing everyone and overextending myself so I wouldn't get bullied. that was a big identifier and challenge. But I think this is this is the worst thing that has happened to me recently, and it feels so minuscule compared to the things I've been through. But let's just put it this way. I'll do my best to explain this and how I'm rewiring my thinking about it. So in the past, there have been some people that I was just so excited to work with and write music with and be around and hopefully learn from and just like have this amazing experience with. And oh boy, did they let me down. And they said some really horrible things to me that totally destroyed my confidence as a musician and as a writer. I don't want to repeat all of it, but essentially just saying like, I wasn't good enough and I didn't know what I was doing and I was an amateur. And it was one of those environments where, well, I thought we were like not necessarily on the same level, but like we're in the same place doing this together. So why am I all of a sudden lesser than you? Found out later, these types of people have extremely low self-esteem and they're just projecting on you. Because I was, most of the time I like to think I'm a huge ray of sunshine. Whenever I enter a room, I try to keep things really positive. I try to do what my best friend calls a sparkle blast. Just sparkle blast of the room everywhere.
I love it.
Like energy confetti. It's going to be the best day ever. I know as the Gothic type, everyone's like, really? Don't you shit bats? And I'm like, well, that's the part we don't have to talk about. But yeah, and it just broke my heart and made me think I was this just amateur and I was crap. And for the longest time up until recently, anytime I'd go to like enjoy writing or enjoy composing or, if anything, Antiqva has been extremely therapeutic for me because I'm in a loving environment with two other people who it's not about their egos. It's totally about what's best for the song and making good music because we care about making the song first and foremost. We always say like, screw our egos. They stay at the door whenever we enter the studio. And I'd go to like work on stuff and I can just hear that person's like voice in the back of my head saying like, your solo music's trash, you're an amateur, like these, just horrible things. Like I would never say to anyone, I don't understand how this person could come at me like that. It was very, very heartbreaking. They're on move. They've moved on. These people have moved on with their life and they're living their best life, I hope. And they don't care about me anymore. But to say these like really mean things to me and just go about their life, I'm like, who are you? Like, and that's where I was kind of like, well, you're nobody to me. Like your opinion doesn't mean anything to me anymore. You know what I mean? But also just like stomping out that awful voice left in my head. And I'm sure a lot of people go through this, especially with the thing they love and someone saying something so awful to them. It like, almost made them want to quit, etc. Recently I've been doing a lot of singing on other people's albums and I could just hear that nattering chatting in the back of the ground when I was tracking it. I'm like, no more. Get out of my head. You're not in my life anymore. Get out of my head. Screw you. Your opinion means very little to me. I didn't want to see it in any of my conservatory training. Get out of my head. And that's a lot of work because it's like reversing a habit because for so long I've been allowing this person's awful view and opinion and terrible, hurtful things they've said about me crush me and break my heart. And it's like, you come to a point where you kind of have to be like your own drill sergeant and be like, no, like 20 push-ups and then leave, just get out. You don't belong here. You're not welcome here. And that's the thing, like the most important rent is the space that you give in your head. And I just didn't want to give that part of my head to this person anymore. It was just, it was really, I think it's been like the final step to the healing process. And it's like, in some of these situations, some of these people did apologize and take accountability and some of them didn't. But the the best thing you can do is give yourself that closure. Closure is not something that is ever really given to you. You have to make that closure yourself. And I think that's what so many people don't understand. So yeah, it's been a lot. It's definitely been a lot, but I mean, I'm recovering. I didn't give up. I think there's some people out there who, like, you know, they say if you don't have haters, you're doing something wrong. You know, if you have haters, you're doing something right. And I think there's so many, like, I know there's a few, and I try to remember, I have so many good people in my life. Why does this 1% matter? But I know that they just want me to quit and stop doing my sparkle blast. And I'm just like, no, screw you. My revenge is to go out and live my best life and live my dreams. And yeah, just really whenever I get a little bit down and all of a sudden that hurtful nattering comes back, I'm like, get out, because I have the best people in the world in my life and you aren't welcome here anymore. So that's huge. That's huge.
You really don't have enough time to allow it as well. Like, you know, when you know, we've only got a finite amount of time to really do what we want to do and you know, live the best life that we possibly can. And I mean, it of course easier said than done when you're in the thick of it mentally with it all happening. But you know, I guess one of those things is that eventually it's like, well, you know, how much energy can I give this? And I need to make a decision now as to which, you know, if I'm at a crossroad, which way do I go? And I think one of the things, like you mentioned it before, like just with maybe one of those particular people is, you know, coming from an area of low self-esteem from that individual. And I think for me, that's been one thing that has helped me try to understand why people act the way that they do, just in general. Like when I watch, I mean, geez, you know, Twitter's fantastic, but Twitter's also poison sometimes with
oh, it's a trash can sometimes. I get it. Yeah.
And you watch people back and forth and then someone puts a really inappropriate comment or attacks somebody. And then, yeah, every once in a while, I'll click onto their profile just to say, oh, well, you know, think, who is this person? Like, where do they come from? What's, you know, give me a little bit more context. And then you look at their feed and it's just all hate. And it's just pointing in every single direction. It's not just one person or one topic or anything like that. It's basically, what can I complain about? What can I attack? And then you just think, like, this is not about, if it was directed at me, it's like, well, it's not about me. It's really about that person.
It's not.
And they're just unhappy in general. And so then you just think, well, that person's just trying to project whatever they're feeling onto others and drag them down to whatever level they're at or below their level. And so things like that have sort of reminded me that, you know, they're looking at it from the outside and they're really sort of at the same time have got tunnel vision as far as, you know, what their intentions are and what they're trying to do. And it's not really about me as an individual. It's more them speaking about themselves or exposing themselves to what their true nature is. Yeah. But it's a constant challenge to anybody that puts themselves out there. I think, you know, in Australia, and I'm sure that, you know, you've got a lot of friends now.
I do,
and I've got a lot of mutual friends that I've noticed as well. But you know, one thing that we've always struggled with, and I know some of the people that listen to this podcast are going to go, I know exactly where you're going, Andy, because you've raved on about this quite a bit. But
oh no,
we've got tall poppy syndrome here in Australia, and it's starting to change. But it's always been about, if you stick your head up too high above everybody else and want to talk about yourself or show something that you're doing or celebrate something that you're involved with, people want to cut you down to size and sort of say, hey, don't big note yourself too much. Don't talk yourself up too much. Like, you know, you don't want to
stay humble or something.
That's right. The modesty aspect is something that we've embraced in our culture, which in some ways, if you're balancing it out, it's a good thing to be modest sometimes. But it really avoids people getting out there and doing what they want to do, because, you know, you're really worried about being criticized from anybody. And I mean, I'm sure, I mean, it's very different, no doubt, in Canada to what it is in the United States. But I notice with a lot of people in the United States, and I think just through the culture that's been projected globally through music and television and movies, it's, you know, very sort of egocentric and sort of putting it out there. And I think the rest of the world sort of looks at the US and goes, oh wow, look, they really sort of love to big note themselves, like stereotypically. Yeah. And the rest of the, you know, at least from Australia's point of view, we've sort of gone, oh geez, like we couldn't do that. But I notice now that I think the more that we're connected, the more that we are starting to take those little personal risks, and we're going, let's take a deep breath. Let's tell people that we're about to put, a song out or a video out, or we're going to write a blog or a book or whatever it might be, and let's just cross our fingers and just put it out there and see what happens. And 9 times out of 10, it's good feedback that comes back, and you just have to learn how to manage that small percentage of the haters out there that do come back to you. But it's a common theme that we all have to sort of manage and sort of grapple with.
And that's the thing. Like, if you don't acknowledge that, you're not celebrating your hard work and achievement. And I think that's missing out on one of the best things in life, to be honest with you.
Yep. Absolutely.
Like, and I'd hate to think that people are like, well, and I know people do this. They're like, I'm not going to put this out there or celebrate this because, like, people are going to think this of me. Like, let me tell you, my 30s have been the best decade yet. I care less and less and less about what people think of me, minus the demons from my 20s. But no, these days it's just like, oh, really? You wasted time having a thought about me? That's sad. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. That kind of puts a lot more in perspective now, considering my Australian friends and a lot of the bands I know from Australia. Bless them. But there's so much good music, especially like heavy metal music coming out of Australia. It's pretty fantastic. You got some gems.
But it's only been, I mean, we've got a lot of great bands from the past several decades, but there's only been a very small selection of bands that have been able to sort of squeeze their head out and get out into the global market. But it's only been the last 5 or 10 years that we've seen a lot more bands actually take these big risks, take these big steps, and get out there and tour internationally or talk about their music in a more confident manner, which it attracts people. When you're confident and you want to talk about something, you're excited about what you're doing, people want to gravitate towards you. And so I've noticed that we've got so many more successful bands in the metal space in particular, just due to, I think, them challenging the status quo culturally here in Australia, where now it's like, no, just get out there, get out there and celebrate what you're doing, and you'll find your crowd, you'll find your audience and your friends and your fans, and create your own niche, community, and you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's nice to see that finally from your part of the world. It really is.
There. We've always been slow. We're always the last ones to pick something up. It's like, yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Oh, Lonely Island. Oh, no.
Poor us.
Oh, no. You guys are, we always say here that you guys are like the Canadians of the South and we're the Aussies of the North. Us in Canada. It's true, though. Out of anywhere I've traveled to in the world, I've mostly related to Australians. There's something about Australians. They always become my best mates. They really do. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, yeah, likewise. Got a lot of great Canadians that I've met over the years, and just blown away with how quickly you can build rapport and sort of almost this like-mindedness that just kicks in almost instantly, just from the way we communicate, the way we interact. A lot of stuff's sort of subconscious, but and maybe not all of it's sort of real, but it certainly feels like you can pick something up and run with it really, really, really quickly. So there you go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm keeping you on the time, but there's 2 quick things I'm going to touch on.
Oh, take your time. I have no plans tonight. It's just me and the cat and Netflix.
3 hours later.
Yeah, we're like, oh my God, how did we get into this conversation about astrophysics? God damn it.
Well, if you like a tangent, we can certainly go on tangents. But
oh gosh,
one thing I noticed on your website, which I've got to pick your brain about, and no doubt you may have some insight to share, but Pinterest. Now, you've got your social media handles, and just all the usual stuff that you would expect a musician or a band to be visible on. And then I saw the Pinterest logo, and I thought, "Ooh, excellent, very good." So I clicked on it, and as I would expect, without overly stereotyping you, there was you had your boards there and the things that you're interested in, and a lot of that sort of feeds into, I guess, from my point of view, like your image and your branding and things like that. But I'm curious, like, to what extent have you used it? Have you found it beneficial? Is it something that people don't use enough, especially from a musician point of view? I'm really curious to get your thoughts on that platform, because it's something that I haven't dug into as much as I should, and I'm just overly curious.
It's really, you really got to be into visuals or recipes, or it's just not going to work for you. And it's really like I have micromania with fandom. I have my specific fandoms and I am in love with them and I pretend I live in those worlds. And that's like, that's kind of where it goes. And it's great. Like for home decor, you want to get ideas. Oh boy, you better believe you're going to get ideas on there. And I don't think it's all that important. It's fun. You can go down the whole of Pinterest and find lots of cool fashion ideas. I've always used it for my outfits and planning music videos and stage production and artwork. And that's like essentially what I've used it for. But I think it's just about as essential as Tumblr. It's not really necessary, but it's there. So I do it more just like when I'm looking for something specifically in fashion or home decor or visuals, because I'm also I was doing visual arts for a very long time before I became a musician, and that's like very important to me. So, or tattoo ideas, if you're ever just trying to build ideas, you're trying to get ideas out of your head, Pinterest is a great place to go and search and create boards. And then my sister's a photographer. She got me onto it because she has to create mood boards for her photography concepts to communicate with her clients. So that makes the most sense to me. But yeah, it's just there. But is it essential? No.
I mean, it's one of those, I get sucked into all the Gary V hype with social media marketing and digital marketing and sort of not so much just being on absolutely everything, but sort of leaning into things and working out how to maximize a platform. And Pinterest is one of those ones which I've attempted it in the past, and I've got my boards of things that I like and even like a wish list of things that I want to get eventually and haven't gotten around to it, or money or time or whatever it might be. My wife makes jewelry and sells clothes online and things like that. So she's heavy into it, and she loves repinning stuff and all this stuff. And she's like, oh, you should really look into it from a musician point of view and seeing what you could do. And I'm like, I'm trying to work out how I can sort of really bridge that gap and maximize it in the space of being a musician, or even sort of in podcasting as well. But I think one thing that's kind of cool, like when I'm looking at it, is that, if I'm a fan and I'm looking at an artist who's got their boards there, I guess you're telling more of your story, aren't you? I mean, you get to see the things that you like, what you lean into, even if it's, even talking about what your sister does, like creating mood boards, it's even just creating like this atmosphere around your identity or the things that you love, and just getting that vibe out there where people can go, like I'm starting to get more of an understanding of the music that I'm listening to, or all these other visuals that sort of complement, the creative output.
Yeah, totally. It helps build on that atmosphere. I agree.
Have you do you have any interaction on there? Do you have people that sort of interact with you, or is it more of a case that you're just sort of throwing the stuff out there and collating stuff yourself?
No, it's entirely selfish. It's totally for me, and I totally have some private boards that are like outfit ideas for the future of my solo work and the future of Antiqva. Me and Zen have been brainstorming like visuals and concepts for Antiqva, because it's like it's so precious to us. It's like our baby, and it's like even though it's not really anything original, like symphonic black metal has been done before, we just have like, he as a visual artist has this like absolute direction he wants to take it in, and I have to honor that. So we communicate that way, like photography styles, art styles, everything black and white, God forbid. I had to convince him to put colors into our brand colors, God forbid. I only got two, but I fought hard for those two colors, because the other three colors were black, white, and gray, and a total monochromatic gray, like no color to that gray. It was a very faded black. So, it's very awesome with project planning, but a lot of what I am doing that I'm really excited about is like hidden from the world, you know. Don't even get, oh my god, I haven't even started the mood board yet where it's like dream houses, because like I just want to like take an old church and convert it into a house, which would be stupid because the heating bill here in Canada would put me under, but you know, one can dream. Yeah, so Pinterest it's interesting. It's been fun. I'm totally selfish on it though. I keep forgetting that people watch me on there and I'm like, oh, that's embarrassing, but it's there.
Well, maybe I've even been looking at it from not the right angle, where it's probably better to be used as a tool, like for collating creative ideas and sort of getting more visual. Because I think for me, like one thing that I struggle with is I might have an idea in my head and I don't know how to communicate it. So like graphic design and visuals and imagery has always been a massive like learning curve for me. I just can't, I've kind of got a bit of an idea in my head, but I can't verbalize it. I can't describe it. So if I'm trying to get somebody to help me create something, it's a nightmare. I'm one of those people that graphic designers just absolutely hate, because I'm like, this is what I'm kind of thinking of, and they're like, that's pretty vague. So maybe something like Pinterest is really good because I can just, you know, create a mood board and just throw a whole bunch of different elements in there, and then through all that you start to see the consistencies and see which direction it's going, and even just to sort of get the thoughts out of your head and just get them somewhere where you can reflect back later on. Sounds I might have to refresh.
It's
my
great
Pinterest.
like that. It's great like that when you're communicating to your graphic designer, your photographer, your filmographer. I don't even think that's a proper term.
It is
music video director. Sure. Yeah. Well, autocorrect says otherwise. Every time I go to type it in, it's like filmography. I'm like, that is not what I'm trying to say right now. They say that autocorrect is just a drunk little elf trying to help you out. And I'm like, oh God, ain't that true? So yeah, you know, it's such an important tool, and it's nice. Like, oh God, I'm so grateful in Antiqva that like our visual director is in the band who can do graphic design and photography, because it's like 2 less people I have to hire out. Thanks, then, you know. But you still have to communicate that, and we both really like, it's so much fun because we both really love doing that stuff. I do it, unfortunately, you know, in a very colorful way for him, but I also can tap into that whole, I guess, noir thing that he's about. So yeah, it's good that you have that in place. It is, I wouldn't say it's something, I've never really heard of anyone going viral on Pinterest. I've heard of, like, in the case of your wife, like where she's like, I do fashion, and I know a lot of fashion and makeup does very well in Pinterest, but that's not a world I'm involved in, you know. It's like,
Yeah, I can't imagine like putting up a picture of, you know, a record or a CD and then having your buy it now link would really sort of generate much at all. I think it's a different audience completely on that's looking for things.
Your modeling concept could do that, but like, I am too tired and I've gained weight from being stuck inside. I ain't doing that anytime soon. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I can't even be bothered to get it on my pajamas right now. So I can't even see my photographer, and he lives down the road, you know. So it's just like, yeah, it's cool, but it is great to like really kind of get inspired to do your own thing down the road whenever you're ready to visually, I guess, communicate that. I don't know how else to put that right now, but yeah.
I think there's definitely some cogs turning now. So I think when we part ways, I'll be grabbing the phone and trying to remember my login details for Pinterest and seeing what rubbish is on there. Maybe.
Oh, the irony that you get locked out of your Pinterest account after this. Oh my God, that would break my heart. Oh,
I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, please do.
One last thing. Now, is it the Juno Awards? Is that how you say it, Juno?
Yes.
Now, I think, I'm not familiar with them, but I believe it's something like the Canadian equivalent of, say, the Grammys or something like that.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And I saw the announcement earlier in the year, I believe, or maybe it was late last year, but I think the awards were meant to go ahead in March, but I think they're going ahead in a couple of days.
Yeah, Monday. I'm freaking out about it. I'm just like, oh my God, this is huge, you know, and it's crazy, like, everything around it, and it had to be canceled. And this year is just like, oh man, the artists in all the categories are so awesome. I have so many friends that have been nominated this year, which is just so cool. But also in the category that I'm nominated in, like, so many friends in that category, and it's just like I want to see everyone win and be happy. And yeah, I'm just like, I'm super nervous and super excited about it. It's not going to be what it was, but we're going to do it at home and celebrate with most of the people who are on the album or part of the record label, and their significant others. It's under 10, of course, being careful. And it's I think it's actually less than 7, but it's just going to be really different, but really, really intimate. And I'm glad that we can still do it. So I'm still shocked. Like, that's been a dream of mine since I started on this journey, and here we are. And I'm like, what the heck happened?
especially for like a debut as well. Like, it's cool. I mean, especially, and like just framing it with everything that we've been speaking about, and you talking about sort of the challenges that you've had and the things like outside of your comfort zone, and sort of really sort of taking that step out independently and going, I'm going to basically, as cheesy as it sounds, create my own destiny.
No, totally.
and now here you are with this nomination. It's fantastic. I mean,
thank you.
I mean, no doubt, pretty surreal.
It is. It's very surreal because I wasn't expecting it. I got one of my label reps to just kind of help me through the process it was a huge filing process, and then paying the fee and then sending it off and just being like, well, at least we can say we did it, and that was it. And then we're like, okay, moving on, like didn't even bat a lash. Like it was just like, okay, now what? And getting through the rest of the year, and then all of a sudden coming out in the new year with that was insane. And God, there's been like, and I feel like a lot of people in my position don't really talk about it, but I like to bring light to it because it is very important. Those big monumental defining moments in your career really show you who the real people in your life are. And when I joined the band, when I joined Cradle, that was a big deal, and it showed who my real friends were, and it was a hard lesson. And it shows you who the constants in your life are, like who the people are who really care about you and don't just see you as a paycheck or a means for some kind of connection or power, I guess. And then that Juno happened, and people who had been telling me for years that, they care about me and they have my back. It was really close to my birthday too. Nothing. And I was just like, well, this is my confirmation that those people suck and they're not allowed to be in my life anymore. So it shows, like, even if you're not working with me anymore, or you're not, it didn't work out in regards to us collaborating or whatever, I always wish those people well, but I go on. I wish, anyone I've had not a good resolve with, I wish them the best, and I hope I'm happy for them in their celebrations. I hope they're living a good life, but I understand that not everyone shares my perspective. So, when these things happen and these people just like can't celebrate with me or be happy for me, it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, that's your problem. Again, back to what we said before. Well, that's your problem. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was life changing, but it really showed me, like, especially from when Cradle happened to this happening, in like 7 years apart, there's constants. There's people who don't care about who I am as an artist or a musician or a business person. They just love me for me. And it's shown me that. And it is a small handful of people, but like, at least they're there, and I think that's why fame and like for superstars and stuff is really difficult, because you at the end of the day, they don't have even that small handful of people. And I really feel I can't imagine how lonely that is. So yeah, it really, I'm so grateful that it happened and the acknowledgement, and we find out on Monday, and then I feel like I can just move on with my life because I'm having this like bubbling anxiety, good anxiety about it. But already just to be nominated is huge, and I'm grateful, and it's opened some doors for me, and I'm just so happy I'm in a position now where I can do music full time, mainly from home. And no offense to Cradle, but outside of Cradle Filth, because that was like the thing that was a huge part of my life for 7 years that really ate up a ton of my time. And it was honestly for the best. They have an awesome person now replacing me who it makes way more sense than I did. And I really wish them like the best, and I'm happy for them, but the change had to come about. It wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for them. There's no point in hanging on to something if you're not well and you can't perform in all aspects properly. I think they might, if anything, they're probably a little bit shocked at how quickly I bounced back since I left. They're just like, well, you seem fine. And I'm like, damn right I am, but that's the thing. There's no real, like, I don't know if they expect me to suffer for years, or like, I don't know what it's their mind, like, it's a collective of people and the team that surrounds them. And it's like, I think like the people who do care about me, they were like, oh, like, you bounced back really quickly and I'm happy for you, but there's no timeline on healing. And there's no weight on suffering. Like, everyone suffers. It's collective suffering, we all suffer. So yeah, I was just like, no, like, they're like, I think if anything, you'd want to see people recover quickly from trauma. Like, I don't know, like, what oh god, that's where I fail in life. I just try to figure out other people when it's not really mine to figure out, you know what I mean?
You'll go crazy.
So oh, totally. I'm just like, the more I try to understand human nature, the more I realize I don't know anything at all. So I just leave it in the corner doing its thing. But yeah, it's, I can't, the Juno nomination came at the craziest time. It really did. I just like broke down and couldn't stop crying because I'm just like, things were looking grim at the time. And now everything's just really, I wouldn't say necessarily because of the Juno nomination, because I had to work really hard on my mental health, but it definitely helped. It was like a big hug from the heavens, I guess you could say.
Well, I think it's one of many things that are validating that you're on the right path and you're doing great things. So
thank you.
Good luck for Monday. I'll be thinking of you. I think it'll be probably Tuesday sometime. So I'll be keeping.
It'll be Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
Oh, you'll find out.
Yeah.
You'll definitely hear about it. And even if I don't, it's okay. Like, still, just to be acknowledged is enough. Like, it's not about winning.
I think having a nomination, I think in some ways means you've certainly already won anyway. So I think anything else is an absolute bonus. So enjoy it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I will
lap it up and have fun with your small group of friends, keeping within your restriction capacity.
Phase 2 restrictions. Woo!
Love it. Lindsay, thank you.
Thank you, Andy. It was awesome to chat with you. You're wonderful.
You can go and support Lindsay and go and check out her world by going to lindsayschoolcraft.com. Check out her latest album, Martyr, which is available now, and go and check out Antiqva as well. I'll have everything in the show notes over at andysocial.net or andydowling.net. And as I say with every guest that's been on the podcast, please go and reach out to Lindsay, reach out to everybody that's been on the podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you send a message or leave a comment in one of the posts or whatever it might be, and let Lindsay know what you thought of the chat. I'm sure she'll really appreciate it. But yeah, I had a blast talking to Lindsay. Now, before we wrap it up, as I mentioned at the beginning of all of these podcast episodes, I am on Patreon. Patreon.com/Andy Dowling is the place to go to support me, support this podcast. So far, so good. I've just really been enjoying this little community. It's far better than I ever thought it would be. And I'm working this on a small scale, but the support's been just absolutely incredible. And it's already covering a lot of the costs that I incur with running this podcast. I should have done it sooner, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I'm doing it now. So come over and join, patreon.com/Andy Dowling. And I've got a Patreon podcast. I'm putting out newsletters, so people get newsletters in their letterboxes, like a physical fucking newsletter, which reminds me I've got to get my July one done and sent out. So guys, be patient. It'll be on its way soon. And just really enjoying it. And it's encouraging me to think outside the box and do lots of new things and try lots of fun and exciting things and expand this podcast. So I've got a couple of goals that I want to reach. One is public on the Patreon page, so you can go over and have a look and see what that goal is. And the second one will be added sometime soon. So I think I might wait until the first goal is reached, and then I'll put the second goal in there, but I'm pretty sure I've alluded to some of this stuff in previous episodes. But go over to patreon.com/Andy Dowling. Now, if you don't want to do Patreon and it's not your jam, it's not your thing, just listen to these podcasts, share them around, tag a few mates who might be fans of the people that are featured on this podcast. Find a topic, find somebody that might get something out of an episode, whatever it might be. A bit of social media love, those likes and hearts and retweets and tagging and all that sort of shit goes a long way with the reach and getting more and more people jumping onto the podcast. So all that stuff is a massive, massive help. And I must say, also, I almost forgot, fucking excuse me, Patreon, my social circle tier, a massive thank you to the guys who support me with the most and just are absolute legends. These are the people that are a significant contributor. I was going to say investor, but maybe it's an investment. They're getting some entertainment return. But here we go. Here are the people on my social circle tier. And Andrew from Perth, Mick G from Sydney, Ash from Deniliquin, Dan from Dapto, Rod from Rayleigh in North Carolina, Saul from Oxford in the UK, Patrick from Canberra, Liam from Brisbane, and Chris from Sydney. Thank you very much. Once again, if you want to join, patreon.com/Andy Dowling. I don't know how many times I can mention Patreon in a podcast, but I might be close to beating the world record. So there you go. And on that note, let's wrap it up, folks. Another episode coming next week. I'll give you a clue. Another musician. I'm on a bit of a musician kick at the moment for the foreseeable future. When I started this podcast, I did not want it to be a music podcast or a musician-heavy podcast, but it certainly has been. But I do like to scatter in a few different people here and there. But for the foreseeable future, for the next several weeks, I believe I have a lot of musicians coming. So next week's another musician, a guitarist, an international guitarist, somebody that's not in Australia, and it's a bloke, and he can play really fast as well. A really fast guitarist from another country. There you go. I'll leave it with that. Until next week, folks, stay safe. I don't know, wear a face mask. Just fucking do sensible shit. And I'll speak to you next week. Bye-bye. See ya. Bye-bye.